The chamber of the Galactic Council was silent, vast as a cathedral, shimmering with the blue light of distant stars. Delegates from 100 species murmured among themselves until the doors opened, and humanity walked in. At their front was General Nathaniel Cross, tall, gray-haired, and calm, wearing a simple black uniform with a single silver star on his chest. He didn't bow, didn't greet, didn't smile. His voice, when it came, was quiet enough to still the room. "You came to our home," he said. "Now you face us." For a heartbeat, no one breathed. The Threx Dominion ambassador, a serpentine being coiled in regal arrogance, flicked his tongue and sneered. "General Cross, humanity stands accused of planetary aggression, unauthorized military expansion, and the use of forbidden weapons. You will answer for your crimes." Nathaniel's eyes, cold as the void, didn't blink. "Crimes?" He took one slow step forward. "You call it a crime to defend what's ours?" The chamber shifted. Dozens of species whispered. The humans had come alone, unarmed, before a council that could erase them with a single vote. But Cross's composure was unnerving. "You think your fleets can dictate justice," he continued, pacing now, voice building like a storm. "You invaded our colonies under the pretense of peacekeeping. You glassed our cities because we refused your tribute. You slaughtered civilians to make an example." He stopped and looked directly at the Threx ambassador. "But you forgot one thing about humans." The ambassador's voice wavered. "And what is that?" "We learn fast," Cross said. "And we don't forgive." That moment was remembered for generations, the instant when the council realized that humanity was no longer pleading for mercy. They had come to announce war. Outside, in orbit around the council's homeworld, hidden human fleets waited. Silent, cloaked, watching. The aliens had believed humanity was broken, scattered remnants after the Battle of New Carthage. Their fleets shattered, their people enslaved. But the truth was darker. Humanity had gone underground. Their ships vanished not because they were destroyed, but because they were preparing, and now they were ready. The council erupted in chaos, accusations, panic, demands for order. But in the center of the storm, General Cross stood unmoving. "Let me make this simple," he said at last. "We don't want your planets. We don't want your resources. We don't even want your apology. We just want you to understand." He leaned forward. "You don't get to decide what happens to us anymore," the ambassador hissed. "You threaten the unity of the galaxy." "No," Cross said. "You did that when you brought war to Earth." The council guards moved to restrain him, but before they reached him, the chamber lights dimmed. A holographic feed flared to life above their heads, real-time footage from the edge of council space. The feed showed the arrival of a fleet, black, angular, bristling with weapons no alien had ever seen. The transmission crackled with human voices. "This is Task Force Nemesis, authorization code Black Dawn, commencing Operation Retribution." The first alien fleet sent to monitor the humans vanished within seconds, and for the first time in thousands of years, the Galactic Council saw what true human wrath looked like. Part 2. The Threx Dominion called it impossible. The Council called it madness. But the humans called it justice. Within weeks of that fateful meeting, humanity struck across 6 sectors at once. They didn't fight like the aliens expected. They didn't move in fleets. They moved in shadows, one ship at a time, silent as ghosts, burning worlds only when they had to. Their ships, the Nemesis-class destroyers, were smaller, faster, deadlier. No shields, no plasma drives. They used gravitational folding, technology the Council had banned centuries ago for being too unstable. But humans had made it work. The aliens called it the Rift Engine. Humans called it freedom. Every alien fleet that tried to corner them vanished into rift space, never seen again. On the planet Cathra, a Dominion governor watched as a single human frigate descended through the clouds. He had laughed until it destroyed his orbital defenses in seconds. When the smoke cleared, the humans didn't land troops. They dropped drones, thousands of them. Each carried one message. "You brought war to our world. Now we bring it to yours." Across the galaxy, panic spread. The council convened again, demanding explanations, demanding unity against the Terran threat. But their unity had always been built on fear and convenience, and now that fear turned inward. Smaller empires withdrew from council space, refusing to engage. Others offered to negotiate, only to find their ambassadors refused. The humans didn't talk anymore. They hunted. And with each battle, humanity grew stronger. Because every alien ship they destroyed, they salvaged. Every technology, every weapon, every database, consumed and reborn. It wasn't just vengeance anymore. It was evolution. But beneath the ruthless efficiency of their campaign, there was something deeper. Something that kept every human soldier awake at night. The memory of Earth burning, the screams from New Carthage, the children hiding in bunkers as alien fire rained from the sky. General Cross remembered all of it. And when his officers asked how far they would go, he gave one answer: as far as it takes to make sure it never happens again. Part 3. By the third year of the war, humanity had become legend. Alien soldiers whispered of the hunters in the rift, ships that appeared from nowhere, weapons that tore through reality itself. The council began to fracture. The Threx Dominion's fleets faltered under constant raids. The Kalor hierarchy withdrew to protect its borders. Only the proud Valari Armada still sought open battle, and they paid for it in blood. At the Battle of Draxus Gate, 20 Valari cruisers faced 5 human ships. The battle lasted 4 minutes. Afterward, one Valari officer was captured alive. When asked what happened, he said only this: they fought like they had nothing left to lose. For General Cross, the reports were bittersweet. Victory after victory, but at a cost. Human colonies still smoldered, entire families gone. And for every alien world destroyed, a piece of humanity's soul went with it. Then came the message. A council transmission, broadcast across all known space. Cease your attacks. Come to the council once more. We seek peace. His officers wanted to ignore it. But Cross didn't. He knew something was changing. The galaxy wasn't just afraid anymore, it was watching. And if humanity's vengeance became endless, it would destroy what they fought to protect. So he gave the order: prepare the fleet. We're going back to the council. Part 4. When the human fleet arrived at the council homeworld again, there was no greeting, no ambassadors, only silence. The counselors sat in the same chamber where it all began, pale and trembling. The Threx ambassador spoke first. You have won your vengeance, General. What more do you want? Cross stood there for a long time before answering. I want you to remember what you did. He turned, his voice echoing. For centuries you preached peace while enslaving weaker worlds. You spoke of unity while burning those who disagreed. You looked down on humanity because we were new to the stars. But you made one mistake. He leaned forward. You thought compassion was weakness. No one spoke. No one dared. Outside the chamber, through the great glass walls, the alien delegates saw the human fleet, vast, silent, filling the sky. But they did not fire. They did not threaten. They simply waited. Humanity will not be ruled, Cross said. We will not bow. We will not forget. But we will rebuild. And if you come for us again, you will see what happens when Earth truly fights. He turned to leave, then stopped. One last thing, he said. From now on, your council will no longer decide who has a voice. Every world, every species you silenced will speak freely, or will come back. And then, humanity left. Part 5 years passed. The war became legend. The council reformed and smaller, quieter, humbled. The Threx Dominion collapsed. The Valari signed a pact of neutrality. And across the stars, colonies once enslaved by the old order rose free, armed with the technology humanity had given them. Humanity didn't claim their worlds. They didn't demand tribute. They simply built homes, ships, dreams. General Nathaniel Cross retired to the surface of Mars. Sometimes, he would look at the stars through the old observatory glass and whisper to himself, "We warned them." Across the galaxy. His words from that first day were still quoted in hushed tones. You came to our home. Now face us. And though centuries passed, every alien knew the truth. If humanity was ever attacked again, the stars themselves would tremble. Because once, long ago, the galaxy learned what it meant to make an enemy of Earth. The stars burned cold over the ruins of humanity's outer colonies. Wreckage drifted, metal shards, shattered ships, frozen corpses, all that remained of the First War. Humanity didn't start, but would finish. General Nathaniel Cross stood on the command bridge of the dauntless Earth's flagship, staring at the tactical display. Hundreds of red markers pulsed across the holomap. Enemy ships, alien fleets, orbital stations, all pressing inward toward the Sol system. "Status report," he said, voice calm despite the storm building inside him. "Enemy fleets regrouping near Proxima Relay," Commander Lee replied. "Estimated time to Sol perimeter, 40 hours. Cross nodded slowly. "They're not stopping this time." "No, sir," Lee said. "They mean to end us." For years, the Galactic Council had claimed they sought peace. But their peacekeeping missions had turned into bombings, their diplomatic inspections into planetary blockades. And now, after the human fleet struck back, the Council had declared Earth a rogue threat to galactic stability. They called it Operation Cleansing Light. Cross called it genocide. He turned from the window. The faces of his officers, men and women who had lost everything, stared back at him, tired, angry, unbroken. "Open fleet-wide channel," Cross ordered. A soft tone echoed through the bridge. Across hundreds of human ships, battleships, carriers, stealth frigates, the signal activated. Thousands of soldiers, pilots, and captains stopped what they were doing and listened. "This is General Cross," he began. "If you can hear my voice, you already know what's coming. The Council's fleets are on their way. They think this is the end of humanity. They think we'll beg for mercy." He paused. "They're wrong." Every voice on the bridge fell silent. "They think they've seen what humans can do in war. They haven't. They saw our desperation. They saw our pain, but they've never seen what happens when humanity stands together." He leaned over the console, voice steady and cold. "They came to our home once before. They burned our skies, shattered our cities, and thought that was victory. This time, when they come, they'll learn what it means to face Earth united." He let the silence hang for a moment, then said quietly, "No more retreat. No more running. We hold here at Sol," the channel cut. No cheering followed. No applause. Just the grim resolve of soldiers who knew what was at stake. As the bridge lights dimmed for tactical readiness, Cross looked down at the holomap again. The alien fleets formed a crescent, tightening like a noose. But humanity had been preparing. In the shadows of Neptune's orbit, the Phantom fleet waited. Hundreds of black-hulled destroyers equipped with rift engines, invisible to sensors. Near Mars, orbital defense grids powered up, lines of rail cannons aligning toward the void. Around Earth itself, 3 massive stations rotated slowly, each armed with weapons that had never been tested. Humanity wasn't the same species that the Council had tried to conquer years ago. They had learned, adapted, and built something new, something terrifying. It was Commander Lee who broke the silence. "General, the fleet's ready for your command." Cross gave a single nod. "Then let's show them what they've made of us." The alien fleets arrived in the dark of Sol's shadow, 37 hours later. To the alien commanders, it should have been simple. Overwhelming force, dozens of warships for every human vessel. The Council had fought thousands of wars before. They'd crushed rebellions, exterminated species, rewritten history. Humanity, they believed, would be no different. But when the first wave of alien ships entered Pluto's orbit, the trap closed. Sensors screamed warnings. Space folded open like torn glass, and from the rift came the Phantom fleet. No radio signal, no warning, just sudden emergence. Hundreds of human destroyers erupted into formation, firing simultaneously. Ion storms crackled through the void as alien shields shattered. Ships vanished in bursts of white light. "Dauntless to Phantom fleet, engage and pursue!" Acknowledged. Rift jump pattern Delta. The aliens scrambled to counterattack, but human ships didn't fight fair. They didn't stay still. They blinked through folded space, appearing behind enemy lines, striking command ships, then vanishing again before retaliation. One alien admiral screamed into his comms, They're inside our formation! Where did they come from? And then static. His fleet was gone. Within 3 hours, the first assault wave of 3,000 alien ships was reduced to debris. But humanity paid for every victory. Entire squadrons were lost in rift malfunctions, engines overloading mid-jump. One ship, Erebus 17, vanished and never returned, leaving only a ghost signal repeating through the void. Tell Earth. We held the line. Cross listened to that message in silence, eyes hollow. They knew, he whispered. They all knew. By the second day, the war reached Mars. Alien carriers poured out new fleets, their numbers endless. For every enemy destroyed, 2 more arrived. The human lines held, but barely. Every station bled resources, every planet shook from orbital bombardment. In the middle of it all, one thing became clear. The aliens weren't here just to conquer Earth. They wanted extinction. Target Sol 3, said an alien commander. Eradicate the cradle. Make them a warning to all who defy the Council. Cross watched the massive alien dreadnoughts align their weapons toward Earth. The planet shimmered blue in the distance, fragile and bright. He closed his eyes. They're going for home. Commander Lee swallowed hard. Orders, sir? Everything we've got. The Dauntless turned toward the dreadnoughts, engines burning white. All ships, Cross ordered, form on my vector. We're taking them head on. Sir, that's suicide! He looked at her, eyes like steel. So was surviving the first invasion. The battle that followed became legend. The Dauntless led the charge, her guns blazing with kinetic fire. Rail slugs tore through the enemy hulls like meteors. Fighters swarmed the dreadnought's flanks. The void burned white as ships collided, plasma igniting in the vacuum. At the center of it all, Cross stood firm. His voice, calm and sharp, cut through the chaos. Fire control, target main reactor. Engineering, feed all reserves to forward guns. Medical, brace for casualties. No one stops. When one dreadnought turned its cannon toward Earth, the Dauntless rammed it head-on. Metal screamed. The impact shattered both ships' hulls. The explosion lit the darkness like a second sun. And from that light, thousands of smaller human ships emerged, charging through the wreckage. Humanity didn't retreat. They advanced. The alien fleet broke. Commanders fled. The Council broadcast frantic messages. Cease fire! Cease fire! They're insane! But it was too late. Humanity had remembered what it meant to fight for home. When the smoke cleared, only wreckage remained. The Dauntless drifted, engines gone, hull torn open. Half her crew was dead. But Earth still turned below, untouched. Commander Lee limped through the shattered bridge, blood on her face. Sir, we did it. They're retreating. Cross stood, one hand braced against the console, staring out at the fading light of the wrecked alien ships. No, he said softly. They're regrouping. They'll come again. He turned slowly, eyes burning. And when they do, we'll be ready. Outside, among the drifting remains, a single transmission pulsed into the void. Human code, repeating endlessly, "We are still here." And across the stars, the Council began to understand a truth that would haunt them for centuries. You could destroy a human city. You could burn their worlds, but you could never break their will, because once humanity stood as one, the stars themselves had no refuge. The war entered its next phase, not one of invasion, but of defiance. Every corner of the galaxy now whispered the same story. Humanity did not die. Entire Council fleets had been shattered at Sol. Their pride, their unity, fractured in the face of something they couldn't comprehend. For thousands of years, the Galactic Council had been the supreme authority among the stars. No species dared to challenge them. No planet resisted their word, until Earth. Now the Council sat in silence. In the high spire of the Galactic Senate, beneath a dome of white crystal, the most powerful beings in the galaxy convened. The floor was scorched black from riots that had erupted just days earlier. Screens showed the smoldering ruins of Council outposts, all destroyed by unknown assailants. Unknown, they called them, because they refused to speak the name human. Chancellor Valor of the Threxan Dominion slammed a clawed hand against the table. "We must act before the contagion spreads." "Contagion?" hissed Elder Vora of the Kintari. "You call resistance a contagion? The humans are no disease, they are retribution. You saw what they did to your fleets." The chamber erupted in arguments. Shouts echoed across marble and glass, each voice fueled by fear. Finally, a single voice cut through it all. "Enough!" Everyone turned. It was High Strategos Zaltren, commander of the Council's unified navy, a being who had never lost a war. His scales gleamed like obsidian, and his golden eyes burned with cold fury. "You call them monsters," he said quietly. "But monsters don't build. They don't adapt. They don't learn. These humans—" He paused, mandibles tightening. "They are something else, something older than fear." He pointed to the hollow map. "Our intelligence indicates they're not defending Sol anymore. They're expanding, system by system, taking the abandoned outposts we left behind, building something. What could they possibly build after that slaughter?" Valor spat. Zaltren looked at him. "An empire, perhaps, or a warning." Meanwhile, far from the political chaos, humanity was building. The Dauntless was gone, but her legacy lived on. General Cross had been recovered, broken, burned, but alive. Against every expectation, he refused retirement. His injuries were extensive. His left leg replaced by an alloy brace, his lungs augmented with synthetic tissue. Yet, his voice remained steady as ever. He oversaw the creation of a new fleet, the Vigilant Line. Ships unlike any before, massive vessels with hybrid human-alien technology, reverse-engineered from captured Council wrecks. They were sleek, silent, deadly. Where alien ships glowed with arrogance, human designs radiated purpose, and every hull bore the same inscription. Engraved deep into the alloy, we remember Sol. One night, on the newly constructed orbital station Concord 9, Commander Lee found General Cross standing by the observation deck. The stars stretched endless beyond the glass, and Earth hung in the distance, a blue flame against black eternity. "You haven't slept," she said quietly. He didn't look at her. "I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I hear their voices. The men on the Dauntless, the ones we left behind. You did what you had to. I did what war demanded." He turned finally, the dim light catching the scar that crossed his temple. "But humanity can't live like this forever, Lee. We've become what we once feared, a hammer looking for something to strike." She folded her arms. "And the Council? They'll come again." "You know that." He nodded slowly. "Then we'll be ready. But this time we don't fight to survive. We fight to end it." The Council did come again. They launched their retaliation in waves, a grand crusade meant to crush the human resurgence before it could spread. Entire armadas descended upon reclaimed systems: Kepler, Vega, Sirius. But this time, they didn't face humans hiding behind planetary shields. They faced fleets that appeared out of nowhere, ships that vanished between blinks, weapons that bent light and tore through their hulls before they even registered impact. The Vigilant Line fought without emotion, without hesitation. And when it was over, human fleets didn't retreat. They advanced. Within a month, 50 Council systems fell. Entire planets surrendered without a shot fired, not because humanity outnumbered them, but because the soldiers of the Council had begun to fear the dark. They whispered about human ships with black hulls that reflected nothing. They whispered about battles where the humans never spoke, never broadcast demands, only silence, followed by fire. They whispered about a voice that would sometimes break through the comms, speaking in a calm, steady tone. "You came to our home? Now face us." Admiral Zaltren received the first recording personally. It had been intercepted from one of his destroyed fleets. The voice was human, male, older, controlled. Cross. He listened to it over and over again. And for the first time in his long, victorious life, he understood something that sent a shiver through his cold-blooded veins. The humans didn't fight because they loved war. They fought because they hated losing anyone again. That kind of resolve, He had never seen it. That kind of rage wrapped in discipline, it terrified him. As the months passed, human fleets reached the edge of Council space. Entire civilizations were forced to choose, join humanity's alliance or stand aside. Most chose wisely. The humans didn't conquer, they liberated. They dismantled slave worlds, destroyed corrupt garrisons, and restored independence to species that had been crushed for centuries. And slowly, a strange thing began to happen. Planets that once feared the humans began to admire them. They saw humanity not as destroyers, but as the only species who dared defy tyranny. By the time Cross's fleet reached the galactic core, millions of alien citizens had already switched sides. They called the humans the Unbroken. The Council's last line of defense assembled in orbit around the core itself. Thousands of ships, the most powerful in existence, waiting for one final stand. Zaltren stood at the heart of it all. Aboard his flagship, Eternal Dominion, he looked out into the darkness and whispered, "Come then, humans, show me your fire." And far beyond the nebulae, the human fleet emerged, silent, vast, dozens of dreadnoughts, each the size of a moon, drifting forward without fear. At their center, the flagship Vigilance carrying the scarred figure of General Cross. The war was no longer about survival. It was about proving a truth older than the stars themselves. Humanity never kneels twice. The core of the galaxy, the ancient heart of the Galactic Council, was a place no human ship had ever reached. Until now, the nebula clouds churned like living storms, crimson lightning flashing across the black. The Council's armada, thousands upon thousands of ships, waited in perfect formation, their weapons drawn, their engines burning, and then, as if the universe itself held its breath, the humans arrived. They emerged from rift space like shadows splitting light, hundreds of ships, black-hulled and silent. At their head, the Vigilance drifted forward, its surface scarred but unyielding. Within, General Cross stood on the bridge. He said nothing for a long moment, only stared at the map before him, showing the enemy fleet filling the void. Commander Lee stood beside him, her uniform torn, her eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. "Final enemy count. Approximately 5,000 vessels, multiple classes, multiple empires," she said. "They've united against us." Cross nodded once. "Good, good," she repeated. "They're all here. That means this ends now." A transmission request came through. The Council flagship, Eternal Dominion. Cross let it connect. The hollow field flickered, revealing Admiral Zaltren's imposing form. He looked every bit the legend, armor black as obsidian, his reptilian features calm, his eyes cold gold. "General Cross," he said. "I didn't believe the stories until now." "Stories?" Cross asked. "That you humans fight like ghosts, that your ships vanish and your soldiers never surrender, that you burn entire worlds to protect your home." Cross's tone was quiet, almost weary. "You came to our home first. You thought you could erase us, and no one would remember. You were wrong." Zaltren studied him. "You've won enough battles to know how this ends. You can't win this one. There are too many of us." Cross's gaze hardened. "We don't count numbers. We count what's worth protecting." He leaned closer to the hollow. "You've built your empire on fear. We built our strength on loss. You don't understand what that makes us." "And what's that?" "Relentless." The line cut. The silence before battle stretched thin and sharp. Then, "All ships," Cross said quietly. "Engage." The void erupted. Energy beams cut through the dark like spears of sunfire. Missiles streaked across the void. Shockwaves rippled through the core as ships collided, exploded, disintegrated. The human fleet moved like a living thing, packs of destroyers weaving between the massive dreadnoughts, firing in perfect unison, vanishing into rift jumps mid-battle. The Council fleets responded with brutal precision, surrounding, overwhelming, firing in coordinated arcs of death. The void became chaos, and in that chaos, humanity thrived. On the Vigilance, alarms screamed. "Shields down to 30%. Keep firing!" Cross shouted. A blast rocked the bridge, throwing sparks and smoke. Lee pulled herself up, coughing, her voice breaking. "We can't hold much longer, sir." Cross looked at her, then at the planet-sized fortress ahead, the Council's core world. The seat of their power. "Maybe we don't need to," he murmured. She frowned. "Sir?" He turned toward the command console and entered an authorization code. The ship's AI flickered alive, voice steady, neutral. "Command override detected. Project Nova initiated." Lee's eyes widened. "You're not serious?" "It's the only way to end it. Sir, Nova's a planetary weapon. It'll burn everything within range, including us." Cross gave a faint smile. "Then it's a good day to stand with history." Below, the planet glowed, cities glittering like jewels. Billions lived there, billions who had watched, obeyed, or turned away when the Council destroyed humanity's colonies. Cross pressed his hand against the activation panel. "Humanity was never perfect," he said quietly. "But we remember our mistakes. We learn from them. The Council doesn't. That's why they'll never stop." He turned to Lee. "Tell the fleet to fall back to minimum safe distance. The vigilance will stay." Lee's voice broke. "Sir Nathaniel?" He smiled softly. "Make sure Earth knows we finished it." Outside, the vigilance's core flared white. Massive rings rotated along its hull, glowing brighter and brighter until even the alien sensors overloaded. The voice of the AI spoke again. "Nova charge at 90%. Admiral Zaltren watched from the Eternal Dominion, realization dawning too late. "No, he wouldn't," he shouted orders, desperate. "All ships retreat now!" But the humans didn't move. They held formation. They stayed with their general. Cross closed his eyes and whispered to no one in particular. "For home. Charge complete." The vigilance exploded into pure white fire. A supernova of engineered light swept across the core. The energy tore through fleets, stations, and fortresses alike. For a single blinding instant, the entire center of the galaxy lit up like a sun reborn. Then came silence. When the light faded, the vigilance was gone. So was the Eternal Dominion. So was the core world itself. Vaporized, erased. Where the heart of the Galactic Council had been, there was now only a massive sphere of glowing dust, expanding slowly through the void. The surviving human ships drifted at the edge of the shockwave, their hulls scorched, their systems barely functioning. Lee stood on the shattered bridge of the Valor's edge, her face streaked with tears and ash. She watched as the debris of the Council fleets fell into darkness. The war was over. "Signal to all surviving units," she said quietly. "The General's last order stands. We hold the line. We protect Earth. Days turn to weeks." Across the galaxy, species long oppressed by the Council rose up. Without their rulers, their fleets, their chains, they were finally free, and at the center of it all, humanity did not claim dominion. They didn't raise flags or demand tribute. They simply rebuilt, because to them, victory was never about conquest. It was about survival. It was about proving that no matter how dark the galaxy became, humanity would always be its light. Deep in the void, among the drifting remnants of the vigilance, a faint transmission pulsed into the darkness. "This is General Nathaniel Cross. If you can hear this, remember why we fought. Not to conquer, not to destroy, but to make sure no one ever does this again." Static followed, then silence. When word of the core's fall spread, a strange thing happened. The alien worlds that once cursed humanity now spoke their name with reverence. Children of distant stars learned the tale of the species that stood against the impossible, and won. They called them many names: the unbroken, the defiant, the children of fire, but among humans they used only one: the guardians of Sol. Silence. That was the sound that lingered across the stars when the war finally ended. Where fleets once clashed and empires once roared, there was now only the quiet hum of rebuilding. The galactic core, once the shining symbol of the Council's eternal rule, was nothing but a graveyard of light, a drifting sea of ash where the vigilance had made its final stand. And from that silence, stories began to spread. Not propaganda, Not declarations, stories. On a small world at the edge of the Orion Spur, an alien child sat beside a fire, listening to her grandfather speak. "They came from a little blue world," the old one said, his voice trembling with reverence. "Tiny, fragile things made of water and hope. The council thought them weak, but when their skies burned, they didn't kneel." "What did they do?" the child asked. He smiled faintly. "They stood, even when standing meant dying." She looked up at the stars, and for the first time, the night sky felt safer. In the months that followed the Corps' destruction, fragments of the human fleet drifted home. The Valor's Edge, with Commander Lee now in command, became a beacon of what remained, a flagship of survivors scarred and half-functional, yet still flying the same symbol that had endured through every storm. A simple circle of blue and white, the mark of Earth. Lee stood at her station, eyes hollow but unbroken. "Set course for Sol," she ordered softly. "Let's take our people home." Around her, the bridge crew, humans and aliens alike, nodded. Many had once been enemies. Now they were bound by something deeper. Not alliance, not fear. Respect. Weeks later, when the fleet emerged near the solar system, Earth filled the viewport. Still beautiful, still whole. There was no cheering, no grand ceremony, just tears, because every person who returned knew how many hadn't. Lee stood on the observation deck as the ships entered orbit. Below, cities sparkled across the continents, unaware of just how close the stars had come to falling. She whispered quietly, "We made it, sir." The Vigilance was gone, but its data core had survived, found drifting near the wreckage. Inside it, a final message from General Nathaniel Cross was discovered, recorded minutes before detonation. It was played across Earth, then across 1,000 liberated worlds. The recording flickered to life. Cross's face appeared, tired, soot-streaked, yet calm. "If you're hearing this, it means we did what we had to. I don't know if I survived, and it doesn't matter. What matters is that we learned, that we remember. For too long, the galaxy believed strength was measured in fleets, in firepower, in control. Humanity learned strength comes from something smaller, an idea. The belief that even in the face of extinction, we still have the right to choose who we are. If you build a new galaxy, build it on respect, not fear. Don't repeat what we destroyed. Don't become what we fought." The transmission ended there, his final words fading into silence. For a long time, no one spoke. Then the message spread like wildfire. Across alien networks, through colonies and shattered empires, the phrase became a creed. Remember who you are. 50 years later, the Galactic Core was slowly reborn, not as a throne of tyranny, but as a memorial world. The ruins of the Vigilance's hull were preserved in orbit, surrounded by hundreds of ships from dozens of species who came each year to pay their respects. Children touched the cold metal and whispered names they'd never known. Pilgrims read the inscription carved across the largest fragment. They came as invaders. We stood as defenders. We left as guardians. At the ceremony marking the 50th anniversary of the Corps' fall, Commander Lee, now old, her hair silver, stood before a sea of faces, both human and alien. Her voice, though frail, carried across the hall. "General Cross once told me that victory isn't about who survives. It's about who remembers." She looked up at the holographic image of the Vigilance projected above. "Well, we remember." The crowd stood in silence. Then, one by one, they saluted, not in the old human way, but with a gesture that had spread across the stars, a closed fist held to the heart, then open to the sky, a gesture that meant honor through remembrance. After the ceremony, Lee walked alone through the gardens built over the old council plaza. The air shimmered with soft light from the memorial flames. She stopped at a simple plaque, a name carved into steel. General Nathaniel Cross. She rested her hand on it. "You were right, old man," she whispered. They'll never forget. As the centuries passed, the legend of humanity's stand grew. Where once the galaxy had feared humans as reckless and dangerous, now they were seen as protectors, keepers of balance. The fleet that once bore weapons now carried aid. The soldiers who once fought now trained others in peacekeeping. And on the first day of every new galactic year, ships across the stars dimmed their lights for 15 seconds. 15 seconds of silence. For the 15 seconds it took the Vigilance to ignite Project Nova and end the war. And yet, beyond all the commemoration and myth, one truth remained, passed down from captain to cadet. Generation to generation, if ever the darkness came again, if ever tyranny rose to enslave the stars once more, humanity would rise again, not as conquerors, not as monsters, but as the same fragile, furious beings who had once looked into the abyss and refused to bow. Because that is what it means to be human. The galaxy still whispers their warning in quiet reverence. Do not attack the humans. They will hunt you forever. But those who truly understand, those who know the full story, speak a different truth, one born of awe, not fear. Do not attack the humans. Because if you fight them, you'll learn what it means to stand for something worth dying for.